Yeah, absolute rustic. Yeah, I mean, it's only really now that I've left that I can look back on what an achievement it was, really, because I think of where we began when I first took on that role, and we literally, all the equipment we had was a barbell. We didn't even have stands. I had to literally hike the bar up onto everyone, honestly, for about a good year. And I think we had an exercise bike and maybe like one medicine ball or something like that. And we started off literally just in a room that the school had given us because, the school didn't really know what they were doing either. They were just kind of like, they saw me do some of my work with their tennis athletes, which is how I got that job, and sort of said, we want to grow this program with our hockey scholars and our athletic scholars and blah, blah, like, are you keen on taking it on? So I was like, well, yeah. So we kind of evolved it as we went.
Hi, welcome to Unapologetically You with myself, Tulse, and Kelly. Julie Gooderick is the guest that we have for you today. Now, she is such an inspiration for me because she was one of the people I sought out and followed as I began my own S&C career. And she was kind enough to let me in, talk about coaching and the types of experience she's had. And now, years later, I'm really excited to bring her into this conversation on Unapologetically You. So now you get to hear about her background as a coach, how she actually got into strength and conditioning, and the way she started coaching in schools and university. And through her experience, she's evolved the program and facility that she was working within, and she's actually created a legacy that any S&C coach would be proud of. So if you're a new coach and you're wondering, where can you make a difference in S&C, this podcast will be the one for you. I also really like this conversation because you get to see why I personally adore her as a person and a friend. And you're going to be able to get to know Julie as the extremely down-to-earth, humble person she is. And she is making strides in her coaching career. She's written a book during her maternity leave called the Wellness Handbook, of which the link can be found in the description below. And she also talks about her upcoming adventures in sport research. So sit back, enjoy this conversation with Julie, and remember, if you wanted to be a guest on the podcast or even have access to green room chats, check us out on Patreon, and then that way you can become a member and support this podcast too. So without further ado, here is Julie talking all things coaching, sports, and being a parent. Hi Julie, thank you so much for joining us on Unapologetically You. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks. So not many people know about your background, so we're going to start there. Can you tell us how you got into strength and conditioning? What made you venture into this field? And a bit about your earlier days in coaching.
Okay, so my interest in S&C actually started when I was an athlete. So I used to do trampolining, and we had an S&C coach that would come in twice a week with us. And this was when I was about 14, 15, and I found it was really interesting to me. I loved doing the physical training. So that kind of piqued my interest. I went on to study sports therapy at uni, which is obviously more injury based. But I found again that I really was enjoying the modules of S&C, the sports science side, a little bit more than I was the actual injury side. So following my degree, when I was 21, I saw a job advert for an S&C coach, just an assistant role in tennis, which I applied for and luckily got. So it was there that I got my first opportunity at an academy. So I was working there under a head coach for a few years, I think 2 years, and then I decided to do my master's in S&C just to further my knowledge. And from then on, I managed to get a role within a private school, which I did for 10 years. So it was there I think, honed my trade a little bit more, built the program, built it to have assistant coaches under me and so on. So that was kind of my journey to where I was.
And that's quite exciting, isn't it? To actually go into a place, I know for me especially, is to go into a place and kind of
evolve your own program and create the foundation. And what was that like to have 10 years worth of, you know, that evolvement, seeing where you started, what the gym was like then? Because I remember visiting you in my early days as well and being like,
yeah,
this is pretty cool, but it was very, very basic, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolute rustic. Yeah, I mean, it's only really now that I've left that I can look back on what an achievement it was, really, because I think of where we began when I first took on that role, and we literally, all the equipment we had was a barbell. We didn't even have stands. I had to literally hike the bar up onto everyone, honestly, for about a good year. And I think we had an exercise bike and maybe like one medicine ball or something like that. And we started off literally just in a room that the school had given us because, you know, the school didn't really know what they were doing either. They were just kind of like, they saw me do some of my work with their tennis athletes, which is how I got that job, and sort of said, you know, we want to grow this program with our hockey scholars and our athletic scholars and blah, blah, like, are you keen on taking it on? So I was like, well, yeah. So we kind of evolved it as we went. But yeah, like I said, I've very recently just left that role, and it's only really now I can kind of reflect back on those 10 years and think, oh my God, you know, we started from that and we finished up in a £2 million facility, which, you know, we did on the back of like hard fundraising and growth of the program within the school, so that the bursar kind of knew about it and so on, and put the money in the right places. So it's only really now I reflect back and think, oh yeah, that was a really, you know, we did something really good there, and I was very pleased to hand it over to somebody decent that's going to carry it through now. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you may be looking for roles in fundraising, or you're going to be headhunting for roles in fundraising. Don't worry about S&C anymore. Did you, like, you're the one they got a £2 million.
Yeah, I mean, I won't claim that I did the whole thing with that, but it was definitely like they were looking to invest in the sports department, and you kind of definitely had to put yourself in amongst those meetings to make sure the funding was directed to where you want it to go. But I think part of that as well was, like I said, the exposure around the school within that, you know, within those years was really key. So I made sure I was there at every break time, getting my face around, telling everyone what the scholars are doing, you know, saying, oh, have you seen the girls doing this, this and this? And things like that really helped boost the exposure. So people knew at that point that then the scholarship program was something worth investing in, rather than keeping it a hidden part of the school that nobody really understood and got involved with and so on. So I think that definitely really helped in terms of getting access to that money and helping to build that facility. So
well done.
Yeah,
no, thank you.
It's something that is, as you're saying, you didn't do very much in terms of the total 2 mil, but the thing is, as you've just so rightly said, when you're going out during your breaks, you know, out of hours, it's those things, it's the shadow work that you're doing that you're probably not giving yourself enough credit for. But me and Kelly see it right now, right, Kel? That we're just like, this is why you're successful. It's because you're looking at gaps, that you're pursuing that goal and that passion, and you're putting the effort into the overall arching success of it. And obviously it goes to show because you've created such a fantastic facility. So it's really nice to move on from it. I think for S&C coaches, I don't know about both of you, but I always feel like, could you create something and then move away and it's still running, it's still functioning, you've left that little bit of an imprint, but for future coaches, right?
Absolutely, that's a legacy. You should be very proud, and I know you are.
Thank you.
Prouder than you were making out.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice to hear. Yeah, I think that point as well that I said is important for a lot of young coaches to understand, that if you are looking to build something and you're looking to build a role, and perhaps you've been given a role that's just in its infancy, you know, those little things, just like networking around your environment, putting yourself out there. Like I was saying on the conference I was doing the other week, that a lot of what I did in the early days was offering like free sessions to the teachers and stuff, just saying, you know, at 4 till 4:30 there's like a free for all, come down to the gym, see what the girls do, get involved and so on, and things like that really helped build the exposure of the program. And I think just little things like that, just getting yourself in and around the area you're working, getting to know maybe other staff that aren't directly related to what you do, is really key in growing, if you want to grow something, you know, particularly in the school's environment. And
what you've embodied there is, how can I help you? It's always been a how can I help you, rather than this is what you can do for us. And when you approach a situation like that, well, there's miles of opportunity there, isn't there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I agree with you.
Working in a girls' school then, so first of all, I just wanted to understand how many coaches did you have as an athlete, and how did that affect your motivation to get into S&C? And what was it like working with the girls in the school to then give them that opportunity to see a strong female lead and give them that inspiration, not only to train for themselves, but to potentially have this as a career?
Yeah, so I think like in my time as an athlete, I had two S&C coaches, and I think the guy that I had at uni when I was on scholarship at uni, he really impacted how I developed as a coach, because I know that how much I enjoyed those sessions. And when I went to do my S&C there, I felt really empowered by getting stronger. It was demonstrated to me the journey that I was doing. And I think I kind of remembered those feelings, and those were what I wanted to give to somebody else, right? So I think that definitely impacted how I coach, and kind of what I wanted to achieve from that. And yeah, what was your other question? I've lost track now. Talking about myself. Sorry.
I kind of bombard you all. This is good. It's almost like looking at who inspired you as a female coach. Were you seeking female mentors? And then also with the girls, were they looking at you as a bit of a mentor and somebody that they can probably look back and say, oh, she's inspired me to get into S&C or to get into some form of sport or coaching?
I think it's almost like, again, I didn't really realize that perhaps the girls I was coaching were looking up to me until I reflected back upon it. But it was things like, after I'd been there a couple of years, the director of sport, they had new kit, and they said to me, oh, Julie, you've got to wear this kit, because once you wear it, all the girls will wear it. And I thought, I didn't even clock that, like, they were looking up to me at that point and seeing me as somebody that they aspired to be. But I think once, when you're in that coaching role, it happens naturally, because you're taking the girls, you're slightly separate from a teacher, and you're somebody that they can relate to and they can talk to, and you're helping them on their passion, which is their sport, and you're helping them on that journey. So I think with that comes naturally that you're going to be a little bit of a model for them, and that's something I always tried to, I suppose, take seriously, and from the point of view I could give them a bit of lifestyle advice as well as their S&C. So it was just kind of being a bit more open to those soft skills, I suppose, of coaching, as well as just delivering your sessions, and I think particularly when you're working in that school environment, it's very important to be adaptable to what is in front of you on that day, because teenage girls are notoriously, up and down in terms of what they're going to bring emotionally. So, I can recall now, looking back, that there was a couple of occasions, I'd have this lovely session plan all laid out, thinking, oh, this is brilliant. The kid would turn up. Like, there was one occasion she just burst into tears and like sat there for about 20 minutes, didn't move off the Swiss ball for an hour. But it was, probably one of the most productive sessions, because we had a real heart to heart about what was going on in her life. Yeah. And, whilst people might think, oh, it was a wasted hour because she didn't honestly do any exercise whatsoever. I think she walked about 4 steps across the gym. But, upon reflection, after that point, we'd had a deeper bond because she'd opened up to me. For the next few months after that, we had great training. So it's about just being adaptable to what's in front of you and not being rigid to a plan, I think, when you're in those environments.
Yeah, I like that. I think we've all had experiences like, or Tulsi, we've had experiences like that too. And I would agree that, developing that bond and using, I guess, feminine qualities, but not realizing that you are using something that is, or used to be, quite exclusive to a female coach to benefit your athletes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always find the best, like early doors, the best coaching experiences were those, like you said, Julie, is they just come in and they throw kind of like a curveball at you, but you learn so much about yourself as a coach and your strengths. And then you're like, okay, well, I didn't know this was in my armor, but now I can use it in other elements. And you've got like a toolbox, and it's so valuable then. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I think learning how to deal with like the emotional side of people that you're coaching, I think is a really, really key skill. And, again, like looking back on the work that I've done across the last 10, 15 years, there's been one memorable athlete that stands out that was actually sectioned in the end, because, he psychologically, he was in a really, really bad place. And I think if I hadn't have done all of my time in the school years, learning how to deal with people that are emotional, upset, perhaps, I probably wouldn't have coped with that so well when I came to working with, a professional athlete, I suppose, in that situation, because it's daunting. So I think learning those emotional management skills alongside your actual scientific S&C is very, very important.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember being told, because I started off in the fitness industry, so I did my, exercise, working in the gym instructing, and then I did my personal training qualification. I remember reading in one of the course books, and it was like, if you don't understand, or if this is beyond your realm of expertise, go to another professional who knows more about it. And it's like, oh, it's all well and good to have that, but then what do you do? You need to build up those networks, you need to build up those contacts, you need to hand over to a trusted professional, because you had this experience, didn't you, Cal, where somebody unloaded everything about their life during the course of hours when you were on this plane journey, and when he went to a professional, everything was okay. And you're like, wait a second, this person can actually help you now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's such an interesting story. But it's back in a few episodes, I think.
It is. We'll have to peel it back and put it in the show notes below. But I love that. Yeah. Just taking different environments. And I think that you can't just force these situations. But if you put yourself in a specific environment, it kind of brings them out. And I don't know about you, Julie, but working with kids, definitely, like, you can't predict it.
No, you don't know what's coming. Yeah. That's the thing. It really does hone your skills. And also, from my time in the tennis academy, where I was working with kind of the younger kids, I was working, I think the youngest I had was 4 actually, and it went right up to 18. But particularly with the younger kids, they're so unforgiving. In terms of if you turn up in their session, they'll just go, this is really boring.
Yeah.
They'll just go, oh, don't want to do that. That's really boring. And there's no pretense whatsoever. There's no like, oh, we'll try and be polite. There's none of that. So, you better come with something that's like interesting, engaging, but also getting the job done. Otherwise they ain't doing it.
Yeah. I remember, even to this day, a parent will text me, because we've still got a really good relationship. But she said, I won't forget when I was coaching her child at cerebral palsy, and he was about 5 at the time. And so I was coaching 1-to-1. And then all of a sudden he's like, this is boring. And I have no comeback. So I said, your face is boring. And she'll still remember it to this day, because it just tickles her. And I'm like, yes, my comeback is that of a 5-year-old.
Yep, that's my level.
Brilliant.
Oh.
So working obviously in a girls' school,
as long as it works.
Talking about working in a girls' school and looking at role models and mentors, like, how much do you feel now, going through the profession? Obviously it was a surprise to you to say, oh, I am of influence, I have to wear this, because then it'll give the girls something to kind of inspire them to wear the same equipment or sportswear or whatever it is. But then how much are you now thinking about your role and your responsibility as a mentor? Because there's so many females in the coaching industry who are almost craving that female role model. So do you find this, you've got a level of responsibility, or you should be at the forefront and like giving your voice and being there to mentor girls, or have you not thought about
that? I think it's, I wouldn't think of it as like a responsibility, but I think as somebody that's done like a few years in coaching now, if somebody reaches out to me, I'll always reply and help people where I can, because I think you've got not a duty, but a moral responsibility to help up others that are maybe trying to break into the industry and not sure like where to access experience or education or whatever. So I think in terms of just helping others, I'm always available in things like that. So I kind of take that very seriously as well. But I mean, in terms of, I don't really think of it too much. I mean, just help people out where I can. That's really it.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be able to help people in that way, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, oh, hello, are we working?
It's unstable.
Oh,
it's not
gone
working
a bit dodgy.
Well. Can you hear me at all?
We can hear.
Yeah, it's cutting in. Yeah.
Julie, you were going to say something.
Yeah, what was I going? Kelly was cutting in and out through my line. I don't know what it was. What were we saying?
You were talking about, like, you don't think of it as a responsibility, but it's also a privilege to actually be in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, you know, looking back to when I first started, you know, if people I reached out to didn't help me, then I definitely wouldn't have been able to progress the way I did. So yeah. I think, you know, you need to give back something now to where you came from, I suppose, and not forget that, because there's a lot of people coming out of uni, and obviously the job market now is very, very tight, very competitive. So people, you know, are reaching out for advice. And I think the more senior coaches definitely have a responsibility to help out that and guide and educate where they can.
And do you set certain boundaries for that, though? Like, actually, this is probably a question for both Julie and Kelly. Do you guys set a boundary to say, okay, I know I haven't got here on my own. Like, I've had women, men, strong mentors helping me, but do you ever go, okay, this is a bit too much, I need to segment and boundary how many hours I commit to, I don't know, answering a person's question who's just fresh out of uni and they just bombarding you with, well, how do I do this? Or what about certification? And like basic questions, you know what I mean? So it's almost like, do you go, okay, I'm going to dedicate maybe an hour or two a week, or kind of, or do you just kind of be flexible with that?
Yeah, I think I've never really had like that much of a problem with it, in terms of, I've never really had anyone that's like throwing the email in with, like, after, you know, in a row. So I've not really had that issue. I generally, people would just email, say, oh, you know, like, how do I get experience, or like, can I do experience with you, or whatever, and then you know, just reply like that. But I think, especially now that I've got, you know, 2 young kids, I'm a lot more fixed with my time, I suppose. So I'm not working full time at the moment. I work 3 days a week, and I don't work on those other days, and, you know, I won't answer emails on those other days. And I think now, if people want experience that, or, you know, advice or phone call time or whatever, that's fine, but it has to happen on those days. And it's very much, you know, I give them a schedule. If they can't make it, that's unfortunate. So yeah. I think, just I'm a bit more fixed, I suppose, with my time and what I'm doing.
Yeah. And Kelly, you've got a bit of an avenue for this, haven't you? Because then you are working in a specific organization where then women can contact you.
Yeah, so we don't set boundaries on that either, but there are 3 of us that we can spread it through. And by the same token, we will shoot one over to Tulse, which I have done with Steph.
Yeah.
And other coaches as well. So we each, I guess, have our own skill set, and if someone wants something in particular, then that person who is best for it, don't go yet, will handle that person and that responsibility. But again, we don't get people bombarding us either. They're very respectful of your time.
Yeah.
So exactly the same as you as well. In terms of, you have a role, I'm a parent and I have a job, and I can utilize my time within that or around that. But if my schedule doesn't fit their schedule, then I will try to help them by sending them to Julie and Tulse and Nikolai. But very rarely we can't help someone.
Oh. So I wanted to ask, how, because you mentioned about, you know, scheduling and having specific days that you don't do any work, which is obviously good, that you're creating those boundaries. I know for me as an S&C coach, because I don't have that, there were no boundaries when I was a young coach. You know, you try and grab every opportunity, do as much work as you possibly can, and then you learn about burnout and doing too much. So how has being a parent to 2 beautiful girls made you better as a coach, but also as a person?
I think, like you just touched on, you know, when you are a young coach, 12-hour days are very much the norm, you know, and you put your grind in, and that's very much expected of you to learn your trade, you know, to kind of be a bit of a dog's body for the senior coaches and so on. And then obviously, as you develop a bit more and get the more senior roles, you can be a bit more fussy with your time. And then, like I said, when I became a parent, I was a bit more fussy with my time still, because you value that family time as well. And it's important to me to be there to raise my girls how I want to do it. So I think it's changed me a lot in terms of being very diligent with my time. Like I said, I don't, you know, deviate from my non-work days. But also you just understand a little bit more of like the holistic development, I think, and you understand. I think I read a quote, I can't remember who it was from. It was one of the Arsenal guys, and he said, you know, even if somebody doesn't leave our academy as a better player, they have to leave as a better person. Wow. And I think things like that is, you know, you kind of recognize that a little bit more. I think when you know, perhaps when you become a parent, your awareness is up to it a little bit more, because I think things like that just really ring true to me. Because I think, thinking about my own personal children, it doesn't matter one bit to me if they become an athlete or anything like that, but it does matter a great deal to me that they become a decent person with good morals, who understands empathy, kindness, and so on. So I think, yeah, you kind of think a little bit more about the broader sense of coaching, I think, when you become a parent.
That's really interesting, because I remember speaking to male coaches, and they said that their kids really taught them about movement basics. So it was a really good thing to see how they evolved through animal movements and basic movements, and seeing the human body grow in that way. And has that ever been a surprise to you? Because, well, the thing is, you've been coaching young kids from an early age anyway. So was that a big change for you as well?
No, not a surprise to me. I mean, you're bloody envious when you see them in their deep squat 24/7 with no issues. But yeah, I mean, not a surprise. It's always fascinating to see it evolve from like a crawl to a, you know, quadrupedal type thing to the first standing and so on. So I guess, yeah, it makes you think about the fundamentals of movement. But yeah, and it's like I said, it's just the flexibility and the mobility ranges. You just, jealousy. But yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it's just a good kind of recap, isn't it, about what we always need to be getting back to, essentially, and touching base with those key movement skills.
That's good. I like that. And so I remember you literally just announced you've come out with a new book, and you'd written it. Was it during COVID?
Yeah.
But you also had, obviously, you had children at that time. So how did you manage? Did you coach online? What were you doing with, obviously, the girls?
No,
so they weren't in preschool at that time, were they? So
no, they weren't. No, they were only, I mean, I wrote the book when I was on maternity leave with my second girl, Millie. So she was only 2 months old when I started it. And it was just purely started off just to kind of get my thoughts on paper about my philosophies, about holistic wellness, I suppose.
Yeah.
And, you know, it started off as that. And then as it kind of went on through lockdown, I was thinking, this is, you know, I've got quite a lot on my thoughts now. And, you know, this is turning out to be okay. So at that point, I started thinking maybe this can turn into like an actual book that we can get published. And the area that I don't know so much about, the nutritional side, I reached out to a close friend of mine, Sam, who used to be the nutritionist at GB Judo. And he's now working at a private firm, nutritional firm. And I said to him, you interested in getting involved, writing this section for me, a couple of chapters? He seemed keen. So we kind of decided then, let's just keep going. And yeah, we got it done in the year of lockdown. So it was, again, looking back, it's a very positive thing that we've taken from the whole COVID and lockdown. And I feel proud that we were productive through that time.
Yeah. And what was the purpose behind it? I know you mentioned that you were trying to get your thoughts of your philosophy on paper, but was there an overall arching agenda? Like, were you just wanting to put your thoughts down for the general populations to learn a little bit more about their health, their mental well-being, their nutrition? Was it like an overarching, this is a knowledge book for general pops?
Yeah, I think it was, because, you know, the more and more we learn about the declining health status within the UK, the more and more I think, well, you know, this isn't the way it should be. And, you know, so many of us are blessed with a healthy body, but we don't understand how to look after it. So I think for me, it was important just to kind of try and get that across, that, you know, there's many ways we can look after our body, and it's important that we do so. And it was aiming to educate, you know, the general population on all aspects of wellness. And we categorized it into 3 main stages: move, fuel, and recharge. And within those 3 sections of the book, we've written about all things covered from mental to physical health, the effects of nature on mental and physical health, outdoors, being outdoors, training outdoors, things like that, digestive health. And then we've looked at physical recovery, the effects of stress, mental recovery, and things like that. So it's aiming just to be a holistic wellness book, basically, for anyone to dip in and out of.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds quite easily digestible. So then anybody can actually pick it up and say, okay, so what am I doing well right now? What are the habits I need to refine? And that book has it all, basically. So it's something that you can just pick up and go, okay, so how can I review what I'm doing and start on this healthy well-being, holistic?
Yeah,
for sure.
That's the thing. And it's got, like I said, it's covered most of the things that we can kind of change habits towards. So things like sleep, exercise, and so on. So hopefully if people feel like they're needing some improvement in any one area of life, they can just kind of tap into that book and, you know, think, okay, how can I improve my sleep? What can I do to do that? And, you know, read that chapter maybe a few times and over the few months or whatever, and start making a few little changes to improve their lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing with habits, like you can't change everything all at once, can
No.
you? So it's almost like, what are the biggest obstacles that you've got going on right now, and how can you make minuscule changes and maybe even attach it to a current habit? Like if you're not currently flossing, then put it next to your toothbrush, so you know, okay, just do one tooth, and then you're never going to stop with one, right? Because your hand's in your mouth. No. So
exactly, yeah.
How can you add more value to it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, small changes.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of small changes, we're going to go for quick fire, so hopefully small answers. But I wanted to pick your brain on your favorite books and podcasts. So could you name possibly two or three books or podcasts that you are currently engaged in, curious about?
So High Performance Podcast with Jake Humphreys is one of my favorites. So I like to listen to that when I can. Not that I get that much time to listen to many in depth, but that's kind of like my go-to one, I suppose, because I like the range of people that goes on that. You know, it's kind of like all different spectrum of people. So I very much enjoy that. In terms of books, I suppose what I'm currently reading is the Tim Peake autobiography. So again, I like just tapping into who I consider inspirational people, even if it's not necessarily within like the sports sector, and seeing kind of their journeys and how they got to where they did. So that's one I'm really enjoying at the moment.
Awesome. And second quick fire, what have your girls taught you the most about yourself as an adult?
They have not to take yourself too seriously. So yeah, and just they always just kind of bring you back to earth. Like with for example, with my PhD, I was telling them, oh, you know, mummy's going to become a doctor and learn all about sleep, and they were just like, that sounds really boring. You know, they just cut it down. There's no point in ever like getting, you know, thinking above your station, thinking, oh, I'm doing really well here, because they just cut you right back. So I think, yeah, just don't take yourself too seriously, and, you know, enjoy what you're doing. That's just the key thing.
I love it. I think that's for everyone, whether you've got kids or not. But yeah, that's definitely one thing they do teach you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Reality check constantly.
Yeah. And so we ask all of our guests at the end of our podcast, name one person you would recommend to come on as a guest. And it could be anyone, somebody who inspires you, somebody you're in contact with, it could be a family member. So who would you want to listen to on this podcast?
Well, I mean, there's so many. This is the thing.
We can name more than one. And we've had a few selfish guests, but then they've all been great guests as they come on anyway. So they've actually named more than one.
Well, look, this is absolute cheese, but the person that probably inspires me the most is my other half, Harry, who, you know, has for the past couple of years has created an app, a wellness app, Dahlia. Worked so hard on that, you know, researched all the S&C sports science, physiology behind it, runs a team of employees to help build it. And yeah, hardest worker in the game. So I would say Harry.
I'm so glad you said that, because I would love to speak to him anyway. I remember meeting him at a conference and I was in awe of him anyway. He's almost got this mysterious vibe about him, which always makes me intrigued. So
he's the absolute strong silent type, and he's just like, that's Harry.
Pretty much. And I'm just like, well, I want to know more, and you can't really dig when you've only just met them.
I'll tell him he has to come and do it.
I love it. I can dig all I want now. This is great. Bombard him with questions. Well, thanks, Julie. Thanks for being an awesome guest and give us an insight about your coaching background and also where you're at right now, and future projects like your PhD sounds so exciting. So we're going to have to get you back on and tell us what you found.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate your time, and hopefully it was all right. And yeah, more than happy to come back on.
Fantastic. Thanks, Julie.
Cool, no problem.